This is Scott Fain with the Youngstown Lifestyle Podcast, where I take the time to learn a little bit about the people and opportunities in the Youngstown, Ohio community. Today is part 2 of our conversation with Amy Day, where we're going through information about the home buying process. In our first conversation, Amy and I discussed getting started with the home buying process, what the person's first steps are, getting your lender and getting pre-approved, and some of the things that you need to consider when you're starting out buying a house. In today's conversation, we talk a little bit about finding an agent and what it takes to make an offer, some of the considerations you need to have in mind when you're making offers on properties. But it's a great conversation, and I look forward to you hearing it. Let's start the show.
Good afternoon, Amy.
Good afternoon, Scott.
We're going into the second part of our series about the home buying process. I wanted to get right into it. Finding the right agent. Last time we had a little bit more of a conversation about the beginning part of it. This time we're talking a little bit more about the process as you get started trying to find an offer. So one of the first things is if they're not looking for you per se, they're looking for someone who's going to be looking for properties, probably going to be looking for an agent. And I wanted to find out what kinds of questions and qualifiers do you recommend for someone to ask before deciding to work with a realtor?
Well, there's a lot of questions you can ask, but what I try to tell people is you want to find someone that you can connect with, that you feel that you can talk openly with and discuss ideas with, that maybe they'll be more receptive of. There's times when, even when you're just meeting somebody for the first time, anywhere, and you're trying to connect with them and ask questions and trying to see, gauge responses, and you just don't feel the connection there. You're not jiving well together, to kind of throw out an older term. But that's the number one thing that you should really look for. Every agent has a sense of duty. It's part of our oh my goodness, what's the word I'm looking for? Our standards of practice. So we're going to have a sense of duty. We're going to do what you ask of us. We're going to try to find what you need or what you're looking for. But you also want to make sure, I'm more of a morning person myself. So if you work all day and you like to, have conversations at 10, 11 o'clock at night, I may not be the best agent for you. That's not to say I wouldn't be available, but, there are some other agents that maybe prefer to work a little bit more in the afternoon to later evenings. And that might be your person where if you want to get out first thing in the morning and start looking at homes, those agents that like to work in the later evenings might, not really fit the criteria of what you're looking for. But the most important thing is when you meet someone and you're sitting down with them and you feel that they're listening to you, they're hearing what you're saying, and they're able to, kind of direct you as far as, the difference between needs and wants, because as much as I want, 40 acres, I may only need a couple, different things like that. So really you want to find someone you connect with. And there are times that you have to fire an agent, and most of the time what we see in our industry is the level of communication that you're receiving is just not satisfactory. So if you feel that your agent is not communicating with you effectively, it is 100% okay to let them know. And we're completely open to any form of constructive criticism. If you don't feel like, we're listening or we're finding what you like, let us know, because the more you tell us, the better we can serve you.
What about taking someone out and you're seeing them showing properties, and then you've come to find out that they're working with someone else? And, like, you've shown them a bunch of properties, they like a couple of them, but they're kind of waffling, and then you get someone saying, oh, well, tomorrow I'm supposed to go see some more properties with this other agent. Like, how do you, when it comes to folks working with multiple agents, how do you handle it if that should come up? Because it does come up sometimes.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. Me personally, I will try to back down because I don't want to step on any other agent's toes. And there's legalities there between, agent and agent that you would go through. So my first initiative is to kind of step back and, but if it's someone that I've been showing for 6 months and they said, oh, by the way, tomorrow I called on a house and the agent that's listing it is going to show it to me. But I still want to use you. That's usually what I hear is, I still want to use you, but I'm just going with them tomorrow. I'll just let them know, up front, hey, if you do come across another agent or you're at an open house and you come across another agent, let them know that you're working with someone already, but you had, preemptively made this appointment or were out looking at open houses. But if I don't feel that maybe that connection's there or, we haven't had that conversation about, exclusive, client agent relationship, then usually I just kind of back down from it because like I said, I don't want to step on anyone's toes. And if the buyer, really enjoys working with me, they usually just call back and let me know. But, I will have that. It's not always a comfortable conversation, but you have to be very direct with it and say, well, it's not a good idea. And I've worked with other agents that have said they will just kind of walk away from it just because, not to get into too much of the legalities, but it can get costly if another agent shows you a home first and, you're the one that writes the contract on it. There's a lot of things that happen in the background that it's just a big headache. So there's a lot of buyers out there. So I just kind of try to refocus business and make myself more available to someone else that maybe is working with me more exclusively. But if, as a buyer, if you are out there looking at multiple homes with multiple agents, feel free to let them know. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but you also, it gives you an opportunity to choose, who you feel the most comfortable with and, it is a process. I mean, there's times, I've been working with one client for over 7 months now trying to find her the perfect home. And, it is a long process. You're going to spend a lot of time with your agent, talking to your agent, relatively communicating emails, text messages. So you want to find someone that you definitely don't mind spending that much time with. There's times after someone buys a house, they say, well, this is just weird. I haven't talked to you in 2 days and it just doesn't feel right because of the level of communication you have with your agent. So, if you're kind of out with multiple agents and you find that you really enjoy the company of one, more than the other and you feel like they're doing a great job for you, I would say maybe steer more towards sticking with them and trying to let them exclusively work with you. It helps us out so we're not worried about, stepping on any other agent's toes because we are cautious about that. It's just not something any of us really want to do. Although it is a sales industry, we're not that competitive. We're more polite than anything. At least that's what I see with the Burgan agents. So just keep that in mind. Whoever you like the most, stick with them because they're going to feel like part of your family when you're all done.
That's a good bit of advice. You had mentioned that was actually one of the topics I wanted to talk about. When you had mentioned about when someone goes out and they find a house on their own, what to do. Like that does happen. Sometimes people like to look off market for themselves, or they're doing their own little prospecting, driving around and come across a for sale by owner. And one of the things that we recommended was if you find something like you're saying, you find something out there, let us know. Because at the end of the day, we're real estate professionals. We're people who, we've gone and taken the education and we know how to put together a deal and structure it so that your interests are protected versus you just going in blind. So like what do you do when it comes to, counseling your buyers when it comes to finding stuff off market that you didn't bring to them?
Well, ultimately, I look at this a little bit different than some agents, and I've been told that by a couple of, coworkers and such. But if there's a for sale by owner that you like, and I'm working with you, and we've been working together for a long, long time, and you just haven't seen anything you like, or you hear that someone's house might be coming on the market and they may sell it to you for sale by owner prior to, but you're feeling, unsure about what to do. The entire point of my career is to get you what you want. That is the number one goal. It comes before, commissions. It comes before, my needs. It comes before everything. And that's the standard I hold myself to. And I've worked with people in the past that have driven by for sale by owners and didn't know how to go forward with it. it's the same client, the one I've been working with for 7 months, where there's a for sale by owner. She said, I think I'm interested in this. I don't know what to do. I said, you don't worry about anything. I will call the owner. I will get all of the specs on, it was a condo. I will get all of the information that you need. Once we have all of that, if you still want to go see it, then we can set up a showing. There's no reason for her to go by herself. That's something that I can definitely go with her. Whether it's, at that point, it's like I said, it's got nothing to do with how the real estate agent gets paid. It's about trying to get the client what they want. So we have gone into a couple for sale by owner properties together, and it is a little bit more awkward because, your owner's there and they're showing you everything, and sometimes when they're showing, there's sentimental value there, so it can turn into a little bit of an awkward situation. But when you have an agent there with you, it makes it a little bit easier, I think, because you're able to redirect conversation and, kind of control the situation a little bit, so we're not hearing about the time little Timmy fell down the stairs, where you can kind of say, well, when was the last time the stairs were refinished, or, tell me more about the roof, or, just other questions like that. However, with that being said, for sale by owners are great. There's a couple of situations, that, require for sale by owners. Let's say, for example, there's, someone needs to get out of their house, but they're maybe a little close to being upside down or right at value, and they'll break even when they sell. We see a lot of that in our area. So, that's something just to kind of keep in mind. And for sale by owners, usually priced the way it's priced because that's what they need to sell. There was an article that was written, though. It was in New York City. I can't remember the writer, so I apologize for that. But he wrote a big article about, why you should sell your properties for sale by owner. And he was, talking about, how much cheaper it is, how you can get more money in your pocket because you're not paying the commissions. For all you buyers out there, you don't pay commissions. The commission comes off of the seller's proceeds. So for a buyer, I would say it's more feasible for you. It's more beneficial for you to use an agent because there is no out-of-pocket expense for you. So it's all, when you go to sell, it turns into something different. So this gentleman wrote this big article about it, and, a year or so later, he decided to sell his apartment, in some fancy schmancy New York City apartment, and he had it on the market, and it sat there for 2 years and never sold a thing. So finally, he called an agent, and when he did, the agent came in, listed the property higher than what he had originally listed it for, got the sale price that they had asked for, and he had more in his pocket even after paying, the forsaken commission, agreed upon commission. And in the end, it just really shows that even for sale by owners are sometimes misleaded because you think that you know everything, or you think that you're going to have all your disclosures. There's legal disclosures you have to have in order to buy a home. So they can be beneficial to the seller. However, if you are doing a for sale by owner, I would strongly suggest making friends with a real estate agent that is willing to help kind of guide you along with it, because there's things that you just do not want to get in trouble for doing, because it can cost you, in the end, a lot more money. But as far as for a buyer, because I know we're focusing more on the buyer process, but for a buyer, if you do see a for sale by owner, tell your agent, let us, that's what we're here for. We're here to do the legwork on these properties. To kind of go back to that condo, we ended up, it just wasn't a good fit for her. So, we can, continue to look, but, just be upfront with us. Let us know. I've gone to houses before and knocked on the door because my clients have liked them, and they said they were selling their house a few months ago, but it's off the market. I don't think it's sold, and it didn't. It just expired. So I'll go over and knock on the door and say, hey, are you still looking for someone to buy your house? Those are the things. I mean, it sounds kind of like you're asking too much, but we're comfortable. That's what we do. So don't ever feel that, saying, hey, I saw this or this for sale by owner or anything. Just let us know, and we will do whatever we can to make sure that you are getting what you want, and with a reasonable asking price as well.
I would add a little qualifier to that and say that the right agent for you is going to do those things. There's a number of agents that don't. It's like the right agent, like you were talking about earlier, the right agent is the one who's going to step outside themselves and make it happen for you, regardless of what's going on, to do the deal that you want to get done.
Yeah.
Now, moving on, we found the right agent, all their financing's together. You're out seeing a property. Now, how prepared are your clients, or how prepared should a client be to make an offer? It's totally feasible. Just to give a little background, I was working with someone out here, and we were just gonna do a little tour. I wasn't working as an agent, just helping a friend find a place that she wanted to be in. And we just so happened, the first place we looked at, she loved it. We saw a couple more that day, but she was ready to pull the trigger on that first property that day. And is that how you want your people to be? Is that how you're prepping the folks to get ready?
Ideally, yes, that would be fantastic, because it saves us a lot of time and heartache. And it really depends on the market. So in this area right now, it is still, even though it's slowed down because of the weather, it is still a seller's market. And so once spring hits and all these homes come back on the market, or come, on the market that are new, just to kind of preface, we saw a lot at the end of November either expire or were withdrawn from the market, which makes sense through the holidays. And then, we usually see springtime, if they're still interested in selling, they'll come back. It will more than likely still be a seller's market out here, which means essentially there are more buyers looking than there are houses available to buy. So with that being said, if you like a house and it is a seller's market like we're projecting it to be, do not hesitate. I've had it where someone has said, I want to sleep on it, and by that next morning, that house is under contract. So be very, very careful. If it's something that you love, but you're not ready to pull the trigger, that's okay, because I'm very confident that your perfect house will come, or there's times when a house is on the market for 3+ years, and finally the buyers are ready to buy, and, your perfect buyer will come. So, there's a lot of, the saying, we hear it all the time, is I guess it wasn't meant to be. But if you are serious and you're ready to move forward, then it's important to move forward. And just to kind of give you an idea of how that works, so when you are writing a contract, let's say, for example, we'll use your lady as an example, that first house, she loved it. She's still maybe, a little on the fence or nervous about just buying in general, but maybe not so much, not that she's lost confidence in that house that she, likes particularly. When you put your earnest money down and you get your home inspection done, that home inspection, depending on how it comes back, you're able to either negotiate or you can just walk away from the property altogether. So any of the, is the house big enough? Is there enough bedrooms? Then, okay, we're okay. That box is checked. Is the lot big enough? Is it where you're looking for? Is it the location you're looking at? Okay, that box is checked. Those are the things you can't really change without either being, bedrooms you can add, but that's incredibly costly. You could maybe, purchase on a parcel if there's, other vacant land around you, so the lot could get bigger, but it's very unlikely. So you want to make sure all of your big things are checked. Are the cabinets old? That's okay if the price is right, which would allow you to do renovations, or if you do that 2 or 3K loan that we've talked about on the previous calls. There's other things there's other factors that can all kind of fall into place if you really like the house itself. But I guess everybody kind of gauges their readiness differently. Sometimes you come across buyers that, love where they live, but maybe the house is just not working for their lifestyle right now, or the location is not working for their lifestyle right now, but it's still difficult to leave the house they love because they love it. And it's got sentimental value. Maybe their kids grew up there. Maybe they grew up there. There's all kinds of, things. Maybe it's close by to, a family member or friends. There's all kinds of reasons that might kind of help you to pull back from, being able to pull the trigger that don't have to do with financing or anything. But eventually, they'll be able to. So their readiness is there when they get the pre-approval and everything's in place and they're ready to start looking. It's more of the willingness that we tend to deal with a lot is, are you willing to move? Are you willing to, move out of that neighborhood you love so much or that house you love so much? And, is this the right fit? But if it is a seller's market coming this spring, like we're projecting, don't wait. If you see the house you like, there's a very good possibility that if you, even within hours, it could very easily, go under contract, or you can get into a multiple contract offer. I mean, there's all kinds of things that could happen by just waiting. And if it does happen to you, that's okay. It happens to everybody. I mean, it's a very common situation, and it's kind of one of those things you just gotta, pick yourself up by your bootstraps and keep it on, and, hopefully that perfect house will come up on the market and it'll check all the boxes, and there won't be any doubt that this is the house that you love and that you're going to be, raise a family in, or whatever it may be.
Right. That's one of the things we always were looking for is, we call them raw buyers, ready, able, and willing is the key.
Yeah.
Like we're ready and we're able. Yep. I don't know if we're willing.
Right.
But you mentioned EMDs. What's a typical or an average EMD amount, especially for a house, a higher end house property that you're looking at?
Okay. So the amount of earnest money down, I would say it depends a lot on the property. We've seen contracts with no money down. Usually for a seller, that's not as enticing as someone who's putting a larger amount down, anywhere from $500 to $1,000. That would probably be if you were serious about purchasing the property, $500 to $1,000 should really get you a serious consideration from the seller. So the earnest money that you're putting towards the house is also known as a good faith deposit. It shows the seller that you are very able to buy the house, and you're willing to buy the house. So if you decide for any reason other than a major element reason, that would be something that came up on the home inspection, or if there was an appraisal issue, or if there was a financing issue, and you can request, if the deal, falls apart, you can request your earnest money back. However, that doesn't mean the seller has to give it to you, and that's where your realtors come in to negotiate, on your behalf. So that money that you're putting down is telling the seller, yes, I know you're going to have to wait 30 to 45 days, and in the summer maybe even longer, to wait to actually sell your property to me. But this earnest money is the money I'm willing to put down in good faith that I am going to purchase this home and follow through with this process. That earnest money comes back to you. You won't actually see a physical check for it, or you won't have physical cash in your hand. But at the end of the process, you're going to get your closing disclosure. And on your closing disclosure, you will see that $1,000, or if that's the amount you put down, or whatever the amount you put down in, was credited or added to either your prepaids and your insurance prepaids and your escrow, deposit, your closing costs, whatever it is. They'll credit it to something else because you've already put that money down.
Right. It's just a part of the transaction at that point.
Right. Exactly.
And you mentioned multiple offers, and that's one of the strategies that you can use if you're in a multiple offer situation. Sometimes we would do increase the amount of the EMD to kind of set yourself apart. If you got 3 or 4 other offers, $5,000 down if you can afford to do it might be the thing that takes it over the edge. It all depends on what people are comfortable with.
Absolutely. I have a couple tricks up my sleeve if we get in the multiple offer situations that I think I'll just keep to myself. So if you're looking for a house and you're you hit me up and I'll help you out. I got some tricks.
One of the last questions I'll ask, at least in this section, one of the things that it's kind of a weird situation. It's lowball offers. Like, I wanted to get your take on lowball offers, and for those who don't understand, if a house is on the market for, let's say, $300,000, and you come back and say, I'm going to offer $175. Now, $175 is a lot of money. It's nice, but if the asking price is $300 and you're coming in that much lower, that's considered a lowball offer. Some people go even lower, depending on what's going on with the property. How do you ever get, well, how do you advise people when it comes to when they want to make a lower than market value offer?
Well, as the buyer's agent, I would make sure that I'm setting my buyer up for realistic expectations of that offer. I will not necessarily write the offer, but unless the buyer tells me to, because my duty is to them, but sometimes we'll just go in and do what we would call a verbal offer. I'd call the agent and say, hey, can you please ask the buyer how they would feel about this, and this is why, and I could list the reasons why. With the example of a $300,000 home, offering, $125,000 under the asking price, there would have to be some pretty major repairs just from looking at the property without the home inspection in order, just the visual of it to say, hey, this is going to cost us quite a bit of money, in repairs, because you're not going to get that home inspection until you get the property under contract. So, you're already negotiating down for, projected repairs without having a professional come in and actually give you the list of things that need to be done. But for the buyer, what I would say is realistically offering, that $125,000 under value is not inviting to the seller. One, the seller could very easily say to their agent, not only do I not accept this, but I don't even want another offer from that person, and they could completely reject that buyer 100%. There could be, you could get into a negotiating situation where they would counteroffer. That's a possibility, but being that low, that much under asking, more than likely it's going to just completely turn the seller off, and your agent may not even hear from the seller's agent ever again because, it's such a turnoff. However, I have had situations where we've made offers, under asking price up to $20,000 under asking price. And, the seller, because it was getting to a point where the house had been on the market for a while, they were willing to entertain it, based on a verbal conversation with the agent that I was able to have. They were willing to entertain it, and she said, write it up, I'll present it, because there's certain, rules we follow as far as actually presenting offers to the seller and such. So, and then she said she will, entertain it or counter it. So I don't want to say if you're looking at a house and you have reason to believe it's overpriced, or two, there's major repairs that need done, so you want to make a bid under value. It's a possibility you could get it accepted, but more than likely you're going to just turn the seller off completely. And the one thing that we see a lot that it's kind of hard to do, but if I'm a buyer, it's best for me to look at a house in a seller's eyes. And if I'm a seller, it's best for me to look at a house in a buyer's eyes. And it's a very difficult thing to do when you're looking at something and trying to be impartial to what you want. So, you may like the old tile you have in your bathroom, even though it's missing a couple pieces because it's antique and you like that look, or you might like the wallpaper because it's your style and you picked it out and it took you years to find it and you absolutely love it. You might like the cabinets that you have in the kitchen, even though, they're kind of old fashioned. That might be your like, and you might also get a buyer that likes that. But right now, when we're looking at updated properties, when buyers are coming in and looking at updated properties, and the house down the street is listed at the same price and has everything updated, you got to be realistic when you're listing your properties. Does that happen? No. People always want to kind of list a little higher so they can negotiate down. But if you list it too high, you're going to miss your target client. And I've also seen where buyers want to underbid on a property because they want that property to fit within what they're pre-qualified for, not find the home that fits their pre-qualification, but find a home and fit that that home into the pre-qualification. So it is tough, but these are conversations that not everybody likes to have, but it is very important. You know, if we have a buyer that they're pre-qualified for $115,000, I may not start showing them homes that are listed at $115,000. You know, $115,000, that your house payment's going to be right around $500-$600 a month, and then you add in your taxes and in your insurance for your escrow account, and that could probably add anywhere from $200 to $250 more. So if you've talked to your buyer and they're saying, you know, $850 for a mortgage payment and, you know, taxes and insurance payment, that's just too much for me. I really would like to keep it under $500. Well, then I know that we need to start looking at properties, you know, maybe in the $60,000 to $75,000 range, and slowly work our way up if we don't see something that they like. And realistically, if you're looking at a property in the $60,000 range, it's not going to be updated. It's not going to have the largest piece of land, you know, and there's just certain expectations that buyers, you know, need to have as well as sellers. And I think that maybe HGTV sets us up for failure because we watch these shows and they're just not realistic. And I mean, I'm guilty of it too. I love watching HGTV, but you know, there's just things on there that, you know, I can look at and, you know, being in the business say, yeah, right. You know, you put,
you have to take that with a grain of salt.
Yeah,
you have to
exactly.
take that stuff with a grain of salt.
You know, not every time that you make repairs in your house, you're not going to get dollar for dollar for every repair that you've done. If you put $10,000 into a new kitchen, that doesn't raise your property value $10,000. You know, so there's just things that, now to help your house sell faster, don't get me wrong, because everybody likes an updated house. But, you know, realistically, you don't get dollar for dollar when you do updates, and buyers know that, you know, buyers are aware of that. So, really, if you just try to find, like, you know, the most important thing in everything we've talked about in this conversation, it really is finding that agent that's going to be 100% real with you, that's going to set your expectations where they need to be. If you want to make a lowball bid on a house and they say, hey, this might not work, but I'll do it for you, but make sure you in your head don't think, hey, I'm making this offer, this is great, when you're making this offer and it's probably not going to stick. It's almost like when you're making pasta and you want to see if the noodles are done and you're throwing them against the fridge to see if they stick, but you're pulling the noodles directly out of the box and they're still, you know, solid. It's kind of what you're doing with those low ball offers. It's probably not going to stick. So, you know, just keep that in mind, you know, but you want to have, if you have the agent that's going to talk to you, be 100% real with you, and I don't want to say hurt your feelings, but maybe burst your bubble a little bit, then that's good. You know, there's a nice way to do it, but that's good, you know, and you got to be able to have that open line of communication with them and say, you know, just as an agent, I need to feel comfortable to look at you and say, hey, you know, this probably isn't going to work, but we could try it. But you have to also be receptive of that if you're going to, you know, do low offers.
Honesty and communication is what we've been talking about. Just honesty, being honest with yourself, honest with your realtor, and just communicating what the game plan is. I think that's a very powerful key to what we're talking about here, is when you're working in these relationships and trying to create a deal that's win-win. On that note, I want to clip us for today. We addressed finding the right agent, finding the right house, and the process of going through looking at properties and making offers. I think next time we touch on home inspections and just what the kind of close process looks like for a buyer.
Okay.
And then I think that'll take our listeners into what the home buying process is from beginning to end. But I want to thank you again for part 2 of this conversation, and we'll see you again on part 3.
All right. Thanks, Scott.